The short answer is no. The long answer is you can. Sometimes. Video games often have many facets to entertain you: the story, the gameplay, progression, presentation, and so on. Many of them are deeply complex and varied in their systems, and expecting a thorough breakdown and review of one in just 60 minutes is laughable. But that also doesn't mean there's nothing a person can judge during the first hour they play a game. This video is mostly inspired by the respective topic for MMOs from Josh Drive Hayes. Gacha games can be complex games with many systems, and at times rivals the quality and depth of console games. Who could have guessed that the market for this formerly niche genre of games has blown up to compete with the profitability and popularity of the entire gaming sphere? Given that a lot of gacha games sprout up daily these days, I think there's a lot of value in creating an informed first impression review on something. With so many options on the market, the first 2 or so hours can make or break the game for newcomers. My question for this speculative video is, can you make a semi-informed review on a gacha game in just 1 hour? My final opinion on the matter: yes, to a certain extent. Playing a video game for review purposes can be quite different than just playing it for fun. You often have to slow down and look for things that are worthy of critiquing. And depending on how much personal interest you have with the game, you might decide to focus on one portion of it more over another. While it's extremely unrealistic to get a good understanding of the game as a whole in just 1 hour, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not allowed to have any judgments on it at all. I would like to propose the best arguments for things that you can absolutely judge in that time frame. So what exactly can you review in just 1 hour? Well, to start, a critique of a video game, or anything, can be subjective. What might appear to be a problem for you may not appear that way for a long-term player. In fact, a good portion of the audience watching your videos are not there to find out if a game is worth playing, but long-term players that want to hear your thoughts about the game, see if it affirms theirs, and if you make a mistake somewhere. They're there to review your review, you could say. Within the first hour, you have virtually no context with how the systems within the game interact with each other, and as such, your critiques with the game may be seen as unreliable, as playing the game further could solve whatever problem you have with the game right now. If I said, Genshin Impact is a bad game because the SSR rate is only 0.6%, well, that may be true on the surface, except that's ignoring all the other elements of the game that might take time to truly explore. What's something that you can critique that almost everyone will agree with would be objective qualities about the game. The first will be the onboarding experience. When you download a game, click on the executable, you expect the game to launch shortly. Maybe you have to wait for like a 10 to 15 minutes patch, but that's normal these days. What happens when you click on the game, but the game just refuses to launch? What if you have to find an external site to patch the game to start getting it working? People have a lot of freedom when it comes to gaming these days, and anything short of a flawless launch could potentially prevent more newcomers. When I was trying out the first Ascendant when I was into Warframe, I loaded up the first intro cutscene, and the game just crashed. I had to retry it a handful of times before I lowered the graphical settings and the intro sequence finally played successfully. What if you want to try the hottest new gacha game on the market, only to be stopped on your phone that the installation size is 200 gigabytes? Well, then it doesn't matter how good the game is, some people just physically can't play it. Another is that certain mobile gacha games are very blatantly obvious that it's a low-effort cash grab. I made a video on the flash game company G123 a while back, and if you load up any of the games on there, it's quite clear that it's just a money funnel to extract whales. From flash sales popping at you every 10 minutes, to extremely subpar graphical quality, to auto-battling gameplay that has no real depth. Playing this for 1, 2, or 50 hours isn't really going to change anyone's minds. The trickier bit is games that can be argued as a cash grab, but there's something about it that sets it apart, to the point that it will be difficult for you to simply dismiss it as just that. A lot of the time though, the gacha games that do manage to take off have more content to them. It's only natural that good games succeed. This brings us to the first major part on why it's pretty tough to judge a gacha game in just 1 hour. The uniqueness of gacha games. Each of them can have nuances that's specific to the game, where the game itself doesn't tell you, where you need to spend a decent chunk of time with its community to be in on certain things happening within it. I'll give 3 examples of this. There may be times that the game does not tell you the importance of certain features or modes. so that you just glance briefly at a certain portion of the game, not thinking too much of it, only for fans of the game to dismiss your opinions because you didn't cover it in a way that most long-term players do. Take Epic 7. This is a game that more or less lifted an entire subgenre of gacha games off the ground, and that's the PvP focus. When you think of PvP gacha game, Epic 7 is very likely to be the first that comes to most players' minds. The most significant mode is the real-time arena. This mode defines a major portion of the game's identity. While it is very likely you'll at least try it once or twice, given the natural progression of a player's account, the game itself doesn't explicitly tell you that this is what most people play Epic 7 for. If you're just a reviewer hoping to go by, play the game casually over the course of a month, maybe give your thoughts on the game overall, then this might be a problem. If you made a review on Epic 7 and you don't cover the RTA in somewhat deep lengths or just ignore it completely, a lot of fans would just instantly dismiss that review. You made a review on Epic 7 without covering the nuances of RTA? I mean, how can this be valid? Second, as someone that reviews any video game, you would expect that information given to you while in-game can be considered facts, and you can base your opinions and analysis off it. Well, that's not entirely true. There may be times when the game gives you information that's not entirely correct or sort of misleading. Here's a loading screen tip in Limbus Company. It reads, "Chaining together the same sin affinities greatly strengthens your attacks." Is this actually true? Well, if you play the game somewhat, it can be true for certain teams or when certain conditions are met, but as a general tip, it's a little bit misleading. However, if you're a reviewer hoping to play the game for around a month, just exploring around, getting used to the gameplay system, what happens if you follow this tip? After all, it's logical to believe that information given to you in-game should be factually correct. Say that you base your opinions off the gameplay because of information like this. Well, I thought the gameplay for Limbus felt a little disjointed and awkward, mainly that the game told me that I should be chaining together the same sin affinities, except that created some conflict with the synergies I was going for. Fans of the game might have problems with this analysis, even though you're following what the game tells you. There may also be times when the game does tell you correct information, but a lot of fans will refuse to believe it, and may even call you out for using in-game info. I'll give a blunt example of this. This is a character from the Fate franchise. What's her name? Artoria, you say? Well, that's not what the in-game version of Fate Grand Order says. That's not what the official English translation of the Fate Stay Night visual novel says. If I call her Altria, then am I not just objectively correct? How can something as objective as a name be subject to scrutiny? If you decide to review FGO or any media related to the Fate franchise, then some hardcore fans may call you out that you're clearly not a Fate fan. You're a tourist. All of these nuances cannot be figured out in the first hour of the game, maybe not even in the first 10 or 20 hours. It's only when you engage with enough of the community over an indefinite amount of time can you understand certain quirks the game has that the game itself doesn't tell you. A lot of this hinges on the notion that as fans of a particular game, you want to feel represented by another fan of the game. A review can come off as unnatural or as if the reviewer is just a tourist if they don't understand the game to the extent you do. Another piece that makes reviews quite difficult is the story in these games. It's a standard expectation that since gacha games monetize through its characters, they gotta make their own lore about its universe and the world. It'll be weird not to have a story campaign in one of them. The problem here is that judging the story can be extremely subjective. I mean, what do you consider to be a good story? Things like humor, presentation, ways that the game can personally resonate with you are all different for every player. Not only that, many gacha stories don't get good until a decent bit into it. While you can judge the story just within the first hour, a lot of the time it's not representative of the storytelling abilities the game has as a whole. If I played Arknights for only the first 3 chapters, or the first 2 chapters from Limbus Company, and come to the conclusion that the story in this game is pretty mid, how might that make fans of the game feel? The problem is that the story is often worth noting in these games, except that the quality jump happens in a time frame that's not clear to a newcomer unless they have people telling them how the quality of the story improves over time. Some have too much story content that it can seem daunting and overwhelming for new players. For example, in the midst of me debating whether to make a video on Grand Blue Fantasy, I found out that in its first arc, there's 191 total chapters in the story. After 12 years of content, this is the state of the game now. If you asked around for when you should stop, since going through all 191 chapters is pretty unrealistic for reviewing purposes, would people watching the review be okay with that? This boils down to a couple conclusions I can take with my thoughts on this. Aside from some objective qualities that can be observed within the first hour of a game, there are many nuances that cannot let you know how good the game is overall. Of course, as long as you provide a time horizon on how much time you spend on the game, people should be able to understand which perspective you're coming from. A 1-week review should not be expected to cover late game stuff. But to be honest, with some of the titles out there, even a month or 2 months may not give you the full details of the ins and outs of a game. I often hesitate more when choosing to play an older era gacha, since it means I will have to learn the systems that it's developed over many years, including finding out if any guides or resources online are even accurate. At the same time, people that have stuck to the game for years will be more enfranchised within the game, and will be on average more defensive about any critiques you make. This was just a shower thought I had in my head about this topic, so let me know what you think. For more formal videos, follow me on my second channel. Thanks for watching, be sure to spend moderately, and have fun out there.